When Caleb Hartman rushed into the subway that morning, he was dressed in his only good suit, resume folded neatly in his briefcase. Today was supposed to be the day his life changed. But in one split-second decision, he gave up the interview of a lifetime to save a stranger. Caleb wasn't just any job seeker. He was a single father, raising his 7-year-old daughter Lila after his wife passed away. For years, he balanced odd jobs, delivering groceries, fixing neighbors' fences, stocking shelves late into the night. But none of it was enough. He wanted stability, a career that would let him give Lila the life she deserved. That morning, Caleb had an interview at Orion Tech, one of the city's fastest-growing companies. The position? Senior Project Manager. A role that could triple his income, cover Lila's schooling, and even give them health benefits. He rehearsed his answers in the mirror, whispered affirmations, and kissed Lila's forehead before dropping her at school. On the subway, Caleb sat nervously rehearsing lines in his head. But as the train screeched into the next station, chaos erupted. A woman stumbled onto the platform, clutching her chest, her knees buckling. Her purse fell, spilling papers across the floor. People froze, unsure what to do. Some pulled out phones to record, others stepped back. But Caleb didn't hesitate. He jumped off the train just as the doors were closing, rushing to her side. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked, lowering himself beside her. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale. Caleb's old CPR certification flashed in his mind, training he had taken years ago when Lila was a toddler. He pressed his ear to her mouth, checked her pulse, and began chest compressions with steady determination. Minutes felt like hours. The train left without him, his interview slipping further away with every second. But Caleb didn't care. Paramedics soon arrived, taking over and loading the woman onto a stretcher. One of them clapped Caleb on the shoulder. "You saved her life, sir. If you hadn't acted, she wouldn't have made it." Caleb nodded, relief flooding through him. But as the ambulance doors closed, reality set in. He glanced at the station clock. He was already late. The chance he had prayed for was gone. Defeated, he dragged himself to Lila's school later that afternoon. She ran into his arms, asking excitedly, "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Caleb forced a smile, ruffling her hair. "Not today, sweetheart. But don't worry, we'll be okay." He didn't tell her about the stranger. He didn't need credit. He just knew he had done the right thing. What Caleb didn't know was that his act of kindness had just set in motion something far greater than a job interview. The next morning, Caleb received a phone call he never expected. The woman he had saved wasn't just anyone. She was Vivian Hale, the CEO of Orion Tech, the very company he had missed the interview for. Caleb almost dropped his coffee when he heard the voice on the line. "Mr. Hartman? This is Vivian Hale. You saved my life yesterday." Stunned, Caleb stammered. "Ma'am, I just did what anyone would do." "No," she replied firmly. "Most people walked away. You didn't. And that says more about your character than any resume ever could." Vivian invited him to her office that same afternoon. Caleb didn't even own a second suit. He ironed the same one from the day before, patched with tiny stitches, and showed up nervous but determined. When he entered her office, he was shocked. Vivian wasn't just alive, she was radiant, seated behind a desk that overlooked the city skyline. She stood to greet him, extending her hand warmly. "Caleb," she said, "I owe you more than I can ever repay. But today, I want to offer you something." She slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract, an official job offer. Not just for the project manager role he had applied for, but for a higher position, Director of Community Initiatives. "I read about you," Vivian explained. "You're not just a mechanic or a clerk. You've spent years helping neighbors, coaching kids, and volunteering. You live for others. That's exactly the kind of leader I want in this company." Caleb's throat tightened. "But I missed the interview. I thought." Vivian smiled. "You already passed the most important interview of your life. You showed me who you are." For the first time in years, hope surged through Caleb's chest. He accepted the role with tears in his eyes, thinking of Lila and the future finally opening before them. Weeks later, Caleb stood on a stage at Orion Tech's annual gala. Lila sat in the front row, her little hands clapping proudly. Vivian introduced him to the crowd, telling the story of how a single father's sacrifice had saved her life. He thought he had lost everything that morning, she told the audience, but in reality, he gained something greater, a chance to lead, inspire, and change lives. The room erupted in applause. Caleb's heart swelled as he looked at Lila, who mouthed, "That's my daddy." From that day forward, Caleb became more than just an employee. He became a symbol of integrity within Orion Tech. Vivian often reminded her staff, "Skills can be taught, but heart is rare." And Caleb has more than enough to share. The stranger he once saved became his biggest advocate. And the job he thought he had lost turned into a calling greater than anything he had imagined.